We are live, and your voice is part of the conversation from the very first minute. I'm Jeremy Horn, also known as the Product Guy, and this is TPG Live, where product thinkers at every level come together. Whether you're leading a team or just getting started, this is your space. From interns to CEOs, startups to global giants, every voice matters here. This isn't just a live stream, it's a real-time conversation. Jump into the chat right now. I'm watching it live, and your questions and insights will shape where we go. If someone on your team should be here, send them the link. There's still time to jump in. And stick around until the end to hear real, practical product management advice from our roundtable. We're just getting started, but first, allow me to introduce you to the roundtable. First up is Ravi Katyal. Ravi is a digital product leader with over 16 years of experience at the intersection of technology and innovation. He currently leads the emerging tech group at Cintas, where he's driving initiatives in digital products, IoT, and AI. Ravi is known for delivering large-scale, customer-focused solutions and brings a mindset of constant learning and experimentation. He's also certified in product management and strategy from Wharton's Executive Education Program. We're also joined by Tom O'Rourke. Tom brings over 20 years of enterprise software product leadership, working inside large enterprises with software vendors and as a strategic consultant. He is the founder of Existra Group, where he helps infrastructure and operations leaders make the shift to a true product operating model. Tom has led product at multiple enterprise software startups, guiding two to successful acquisitions. A true full-stack manager, he's built product teams from the ground up and still embraces the do-it-all mindset when needed. He's also the co-host of the Enterprise Automation Excellence podcast. Today on TPG Live, what does it take to make a company truly product-led without adding more process? And how do you get design and engineering to move together when everything feels like a trade-off? Join us in the chat room and at the roundtable as we discuss all this and much more coming up next on TPG Live. Before we get started, a quick reminder. What you see here on YouTube is only part of the Product Way. Our Patreon is where serious product professionals go to make better decisions, grow faster, and open new career opportunities. Members get the full experience, proven frameworks and tools you can use right away, expanded TPG Live recaps with actionable strategies that go beyond the roundtable, curated introductions to trusted hiring managers through PM Select, and our exclusive Roadmap to Mastery series, including How to Lead at the Intersection of Product and AI. Members are already landing new roles and solving tough product challenges more effectively. Join them today at patreon.com/theproductway or use the QR code on your screen to become a member right now. Your go-to platform for all things product management, connecting you with industry leaders, trendsetters, and a global community of insights and unique perspectives. This is the Product Way. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to TPG Live. We've got a very exciting show for you here today. I'm going to be talking about all sorts of things product management. Before we get started, though, allow me to just double check. Tom, Ravi, did I get everything right, or is there anything you want to correct?
You got everything.
You got everything.
Awesome. So as I like to do for our shows is to I always like to start with a question of the show, something to kind of loosen us all up and get started here. And so for our first opening here for the question of the show is I'd like to go around and ask, what's the strangest user request, the very strangest user request you've ever taken seriously? I'm sure you take all your customers' requests seriously, but what's the strangest one that you took seriously? For that, let's start with you, Tom.
Sure. So, several companies back, I was responsible for a secure collaboration product. Think of something like Slack on steroids when it comes to security, when it needs to meet the requirements of a financial institution or a health company. And I'll say that whenever you build any type of product, there are some you know basic assumptions that you build from. One of those is usually that these computers are going to stay in one place, and the way that they connect together is going to be pretty solid. Sure, routing may change over time, but physically you have a pretty good idea of this. Well, one of our senior salespeople came in and said, Tom, I found a fantastic opportunity for us. There are a couple of things that we may have to tweak a little bit in order to go and deploy this. I said, Mark, so we're more than happy to do it. It's you're excited. That probably means that this is a big deal. What's going on with it? He's like, well, the company wants to go and put our equipment on their cruise ships, and we've already asked. No, they don't want to keep the servers in a data center. They want the equipment on cruise ships. They have irregular networking. Sometimes the satellite works, sometimes it doesn't. But I told them, be no problem at all to make sure that people can keep chatting when this goes on.
Well, it definitely
And
sounds like a salesperson. So
it you know, my salary and bonuses has been paid many times by salespeople. So I don't mean to say anything negative at all. Sometimes they're further out there with vision than others are capable of going and fulfilling. And I will just say that the summarize the story from there. The laws of physics got in our way. This was, a decade before there was anything like Starlink out there that would have
Yeah.
given us reliable, low latency networking. And we just weren't going to be able to connect all the cruise ships together with physical wires, which is, the starting point for our assumptions. So, I don't know if I put that into the category of bizarre, but it was certainly a stretch of, my imagination and the engineering team's chops.
awesome. Ravi.
Of course. And the funniest thing I have is that my user story is exactly the same what Tom has said. So how,
You
how
had the
amazing.
same sales guy?
Not the same sales guy, but I'll go through it and you'll realize that the core problem was the same. So many years back in my previous organization, actually, we were working on an IoT solution, which works on cellular network again. And one of the requests was, can you make it offline, but with live updates? So it's kind of aligned to what you were saying. There is no network, but we still want connectivity. And again, at the face value of it, it is kind of paradoxical because how can I make it offline with live update? However, when I started talking to the users, actually the real problem was the connectivity, right? So behind sometimes these weird requests, users actually sometimes what they do, they provide us the symptom and not the actual feature we need to build in. So we went into again the engineering mindset and brainstorming, and we did give them like sync capabilities and latent caching. Like you were saying, low latency means you can always bring up a lot of work in terms of the caching process. Uh, they did achieve some live updates. Again, not all live updates, but it's so funny that we have the exact same problem. Like so many years apart. Yeah.
Awesome. The the problem. The request I remember very specifically. It was a popular project management platform that I was doing some work with, and the user request came in. Can you make that initial state or that empty state at the beginning less lonely? And so and they really because I could see their face, so it was there was a real genuineness. It's got to be a better word. A better word is escaping me, but it was clearly genuine. You could tell that they actually felt the word lonely. But it really turned out that the loneliness that they were talking about It turned out that the loneliness, it made them feel, the product was making them feel alone. They had everyone at their company was depending on them. They were starting from nothing. They were the responsible person, solely responsible for kind of success or failure, especially as it came to using the product. And so their loneliness was really, once you kind of double clicked, triple clicked, and got into it, it was really the pressure. It was the dread. And so we did fill that empty space. We put quick tips, kind of moments of encouragement, advice from other users, examples of how to work through certain types of problems. Later on, we introduced templates, enabled sharing. So basically, we did actually address the loneliness aspect. We kind of focused on it from the perspective of helping people feel connected, feel supported by others, peers, coworkers, et cetera, other people that were kind of feeling their pain, basically to not feel alone. And so that's the request that came in from a perspective of loneliness, and turned into some nice product improvements there. So that kind of brings us into our first topic. So we're going to be talking about building a product-led organization today. And it's definitely a topic I love to talk about, and I could talk about for 10 hours, 12 hours. But don't worry, I won't. That's why we have a roundtable. They're going to do most of the talking. And also for those of you in the chat room, whether you're joining us from LinkedIn or you're joining us from YouTube, post your questions, post your comments, post your observations, jump into the conversation. I'll work you in throughout, whether it's directly related to this topic, or if not, I'll put a pin in it and we'll get to it a little bit later. So, being product-led, it's not just about having a product team. It's really about transforming how the whole company thinks, decides, measures success. So I really want to explore what it takes to embed that product mindset, that product thinking across an entire organization. So to start off, let's start with you, Ravi, since you're in the top right of my screen here. Let's just kind of start with the basics. So before we talk about transformation, maybe it would be good to define the target. What does it actually mean to be a product-led organization in your experience?
Yes. And I think for me, the product-led organization is a spectrum, and it's not a binary that one day you were not and on the second day you were. I think it's a whole spectrum, and a lot of organizations which are
I'd
on
be
this
out of a
journey,
job if it was so binary.
So binary, yes. It's not like a project management tool where you turn on one day and next day you have that tool, right? And this is where I think different organizations, especially in non-tech sector, are at a different path of that journey, like different point of that journey. I think the product-led organizations are one which are driven by user outcomes, the actual business outcomes and the user outcomes tied to the value. And there are learning loops somewhere along the line. Those learning loops are helping. Organizations are evolving. I've seen many organizations evolving in this spectrum, how they are balancing short-term goals and long-term goals. Bottom line is, are they inherently following the product culture by following those principles? And sometimes you don't have to stick to the principles. You have to stick to the basics of what are my pain points, how am I giving my user a value. And it's not about who leads a product-led organization, or it's more about what leads. And in the what in this is actually the user is the king, or the customer is the king in this case. And everything is aligned to those outcomes. And every aspect of the organization, whether it's product, design, engineering, everyone leads to that common goal. I think that common goal or that common business outcome aligned across all the spectrum, all the different departments, different sub-organizations within the organization lead to a good product-led organization. And I do believe no one's perfect, but I think different organizations are getting there with aligning more and more. In fact, many subsections in an existing organization can be at different point within that product journey, because many organizations work on multiple business lines also.
Gotcha. Tom?
Yeah, I think it's worth taking a moment to think about what are the other possibilities. If you're not product led, then what is leading the organization? And you could be in an organization that's being driven by the technology team. Sometimes that's healthy when the technology is out there on the bleeding edge, but
So kind of
that
like
also,
Google.
well, Google doesn't come first to mind, but it does mean that you better have a reliable source of funding for and patient investors, because it may take a while to have that hit that is going to bring things back. There are organizations that are entirely financial driven, that um, they are the ones who produce the lowest cost widgets in a space, and at the end of the day, the product team can go and figure out new markets for widgets or how to stay competitive with the others, but you're going to be finance led. And
And so
I'll say
you mean by that, you mean when you're finance led, it's just undercutting on price. So a lot of consulting
well,
companies just chasing the lowest hourly rate.
I in my history, I worked for a company that was out competing overseas producers at producing networking cables and connectors and racks and other things, and there wasn't room for product-led innovation there. It was all about they had built a machine, and they were going to keep working on it. And I'll note the last one is sales led. That there are organizations where sales is going to drive where things go, and as a product manager, you need you're going to need a pretty thick skin, and you're going to need some type of cover at the executive level on this, because otherwise you're going to lose every battle. So, bringing it back to being product led, this, in my experience, these are usually organizations where, you have, made the initial fit with the customer base. You've got, the ability to, bring the whole organization together and, operate in harmony with one another, because that each of the different groups that makes up the organization has the ability through product to see how their piece goes, and realizes technical success, realizes financial success, make sure that the salespeople all get to go to Hawaii every year, that you're doing the good work.
Nice conference center over there.
Mhm.
I think kind of to build on that, I want to go over to you, Ravi, in that
Mhm.
many companies say they're product led, but their decision making is really telling a different story. What are some of the signs that you've seen that an organization is or isn't truly product led?
I think again it goes back to the outcome of are all so when this is happening, when they are actually saying that they are product led, but sometimes at the core it's not happening. I think it's also happening from different level of values, different teams and their leaders are actually assigning back to it. So that's I think the first sign. If you are looking at a product but there are different teams who are actually having different outcomes derived for that product, engineering is working on a different outcome or design is working on a different outcome, I think that's usually the first sign. Because if there is a common goal but everyone has their own pull on that common goal detroits, that final outcome detroits sometimes. Second sign I would say is, are they more into shipping feature or are they more into shipping outcomes? Do they have a bridge between the features and the outcomes? Because that actually determines a lot. Because a lot of organizations who say that they are product led, and I've seen a lot of tech companies which actually do that, they actually say that we are shipping a lot of features. We shipped X number of features in last quarter, and that I think for me is directly telling me that you are counting features and not the outcomes.
Yeah, hurts me, pains me greatly.
Yes.
Tom, do you want to add any more to that one?
I think that, just note that there's another piece to this, and I know that the P in TPG is for product, but there's an element of politics in this as well, and I mean that in the positive sense, which, as we sit here in the United States right now, has to be underscored, but in a positive sense, in order to bring together the different groups, the different constituencies in pursuit of a common goal, being product driven, being focused on how that product has an outcome for the customer, that takes work. And I've often found that, as the product person, you're in the middle of making sure that you can help each of the groups connect what they are doing and what they want to achieve towards those larger outcomes. And sometimes that means that, they need to delay something that they want, or they need to put aside something that they want, because the larger outcome is what the executive team has, signed up with the board and the shareholders for, what the product people have signed up with the customers for.
Yeah, I kind of agree to that as well. Like a good product manager is sometimes I feel a master negotiator, not manipulator, negotiator. If they have a uh, good knack of bringing different teams together, and sometimes it's just like you said, politics. I use the word different perspective. Every organization and every group has teams who have different perspectives of looking at the same problem, and I think product managers has that job to translate their vision of it. How can they align it to that? I totally agree to that. They are, I feel, master negotiators.
Yeah, I think product people often underestimate the importance of sales in their job
Yes.
and that whole skill set. Um,
Yes.
Culture. I want when you're talking about product mindset, product led, that kind of cultural change doesn't happen through a reorg or a playbook, or not typically. It happens through kind of developing with repeated behaviors over time. Ravi, kind of what's helped you lead a shift in culture toward more product led thinking?
I think the change starts from within. I come from technology background. I'm still a technologist, right? But when you start looking at a perspective, when you start looking at, yes, there is a change needed, right? That's the first thing. A person has to, the change should come from within. Second thing is, if you are leading that change, evidence backs everything. If you have to, like you said, it's a repetitive outcome of consistently delivering, however small you are delivering. If you are delivering it with a core principle and you are actually proving success again and again, those successes are going to get bigger and bigger, and that evidence is going to help others align to your ideology. I think that is the best way. Is a lot of talking happens, a lot of evangelism happens when you are going behind the ideology, like for example product ideology or technology ideology, right? Or even a particular approach of doing something. The best thing you can do is deliver. Whether you are delivering small or big, deliver with your approach, your principles. Keep doing that and make it a success story for others to follow. I think that's the best way to bring change.
So I want to get a little deeper there, in
Mhm.
that. So I get evidence. Evidence backs everything. Got it.
Yes.
Definitely. You need to start small and build from there. But what are some of the specific steps that you kind of have in mind when you're saying that?
So, for example, if I am looking at a transformation, a product operating model transformation for any type of a product, for me, what I would do is I would actually go and identify those outcomes. Right? What is the business outcome? What is, and I'm gonna talk very practically. What is the next quarter outcome? What is the next year outcome? Right? Align with business on that. And when you get into that outcome, for example, if I'm building an app, I'm building an airline booking app, for example, or a web experience. And I connect to business and I get like, hey, the business outcome I'm looking for is X numbers of booking in next quarter. Very simple. That's where then you get that outcome and you start breaking that down into sub outcomes. It can start with landing page. How can I create a nice booking experience? How can I upsell, cross sell, stuff like that. I don't want to go into the nitty gritty details of the app, but those sub features, and then you have to sell this to your individual teams. You have to sell engineering the scalability, the fact that if this product operating model is successful, not only will be able to ship more features and more outcomes and deliver value to customer, we will get better engineers in our team. We'll get more long lasting visibility. For our design team, I think for any designer, the best experience is as many number of users are using it and they are using it with a smile on their face. So you have to work with them on that, right? So you break down that single business outcome across these different divisions and you start bringing everyone together. I think that's the way I would adapt if I am in such a situation. And going back to, I think a lot of organizations have been in this journey. One like senior leadership should be in aligned from a funding as well as a, uh, buying in perspective. So there goes some sales skills like you were talking about. You have to plan this out, sell it to the senior leadership, and bring everyone together in the journey.
Yeah, I would add to that. And you used the word evangelize. I would say, advocacy
Yes.
is important. Um, depending on where the culture is at when you start this journey toward product led, you know, there is obviously a strong core of we're going to show on a small scale that this is successful, and we're going to market that. But I think what I found is that you also have to go outside of the boundaries of the product leader's job and start to engage in identifying issues in the culture, identifying issues in the organization structure, identifying issues in the way that people are rewarded, how they're compensated along the way, because
So
for
give
this
some
all to be
examples,
healthy.
give some specifics.
So you know, if you are, your focus is on, building out a a solid product that customers love in a particular space, but the example that comes to mind is going to be sales again, and I'm really not picking on them. Sales wants to take you into a completely different market, which is going to cause you to lose attention on the main focus. You have to understand, where is that coming from? Is they, is that coming from the fact that they really have had a piece of inspiration, or is it coming from the fact that the way their bonus structure is aligned, doesn't all money is good money, whether or not it fits into the company's medium and long-term goals. And I will say that talking about sales compensation is a minefield for product people. But if you're going to make sure it's things are going to be a success, and you're looking to make sure that you reinforce the culture, sometimes you have to go and find a way to get through that minefield.
Yeah, you actually. No, Ravi, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I wanted to share with Tom. So in that perspective, you need to have a solid organizational single linear mindset that we need that change. A lot of organizations are doing successful business out there. Traditionally, product led was not the approach for them, and they are successful at. They are actively selling their products. A lot of, I'm going to talk about brick and mortar, like physical product organizations. So bringing such a big change, a lot of times the question comes is why there is a change needed when everything is working fine, right? And that's where I think the approach will be. I totally agree with you there. There is a lot of factors included in this. Culture also drives how people think. So this is where and I'll go back to the airline booking example because I'm looking for an example. A lot of I'm going to talk about, for example, engineering teams or tech team, right? They were focused on delivery. Okay, I have delivered the outcome. As soon as we align them to the final outcome of number of bookings, their engineering mindset will start thinking in the way what all they have to do in the product so that the bookings are higher. Some, I think we can start attacking like small components. When you're saying sales and their commissions, you're hitting right at the core. And I think sales may not be happy with that.
Yeah, it's
Well,
Go ahead, Tom.
yeah, in the end, I've never tried to shrink a sales compensation pool,
Of course.
but I have tried to get the equations for that pool adjusted, and I've been successful a number of times, but a few of these gray hairs have come from that journey.
Of course. Yeah, my few hairs are also because of that, but I'm getting there, Tom.
I've lost my gray hairs as a result. No, Tom, I wanted to. It's interesting. You really make a very good point there, and I think when organizations, whether you're startup or enterprise, and they are looking for that kind of product led or product mindset thinking. And when I think about product mindset, I'm thinking about being business outcome driven, being not again, as you were both were already pointing out, not about feature releases, but how are we going to hit the bottom line of the organization. And so as product people are kind of and as the role also evolves, it's becoming more of almost a coaching type of role inside of an organization. And by that, it's you are looking at these other units, you're looking at sales, you're looking at the incentives. And so when you are making that mindset shift, you're looking at how you're looking at the incentives, but you're not doing just product organizational change. You are doing organizational change. And so it's not just incentives, but structures, how different groups communicate, teaching, helping other groups learn. Like when we had our biggest successes when I was doing some of my work at Cognizant and making a lot of that transformation by working with sales. And we worked with them on how to better position, how to engage with clients. And we didn't use any of the jargon of product, but it was about outcomes. What are the problems that they're seeing? And we worked to really realign their incentives, as you were pointing out, with what we were trying to accomplish in the organization, and didn't face any resistance. It worked well because we were well communicated. We did a ton of education, a lot of opportunities for people to kind of feed into the system. But yeah, it's thinking about that larger organization there. Ravi, what are some of those toughest organizational barriers you've encountered when trying to shift towards the product-led way of thinking and working?
Yeah, one of the previous organizations, I'll take an example actually. I think the biggest barrier, and I'll take a very simple thing like a outcome driven approach or agile transformation. One of the previous organizations, the biggest thing which stops is change. Nobody wants to change. Change is uncomfortable. Everyone is actually comfortable with how they are doing things every day. There are processes built around that. There are KPIs built around that. There are metrics built around that. I think first thing is to convince for the change. And again, I'll go back to that. A lot of organizations which are in business from many years, the first question comes is why there is a need of a change, right? Why would we change? I mean, everything is working fine. And that's where I think the biggest hurdle is the change and transformation itself. Then on top of that, the alignment across a lot of organizations have grown into like different silos, and those silos sometimes you have to align. For product people have the toughest job to align a lot of different teams and a lot of different groups within an organization. So I think that alignment and bringing everyone together is always a challenge.
So you mentioned getting people to want that change. What have you found that helps you, I guess, get them to want the change, using your words?
So I think, and again, I'll take the example of iterative approach in any product, right? Traditionally, organizations have done like waterfall or build in. I think the way to make them want would be the immediate delivery and the success of the outcomes and what they gain out of that success of the outcomes. Anyone, they love success. Everyone loves success. Nobody shows up on job to do a bad job, right? And the iterative approach and the quick success with this product model always help them buy into that. Yes, I think I can work with this. I could deliver something of great value in a month or in 2 months when I was probably waiting longer than that.
Same questions to you, Tom. What are some of the barriers you've encountered that have been particularly sticky?
I'm trying to avoid going back to sales on this right now. I think no, I will note that sometimes there can be challenges with existing customers when you are making a shift, or you're looking to have more focus in the area that your product is really best suited. And it's not always because this is a course change that is leaving a customer behind. Sometimes it's simply that the customer is very, very happy with owning an old version of the product, and they don't want to move forward. Moving forward means work for them. Moving forward means risk for them. Maybe they've got another 2 years until they retire. But I think we don't often talk about customers as obstacles. But we can go look in the thesaurus and find a politer word for it. But being product led, making any type of change, making cultural change, you are probably going to find that you're going to have customers who'll go out and evangelize for you, but you're going to have other customers that you're going to have to pull along, and there may even be some customers that you're going to have to accept that you're no longer going to be able to serve them. That they're running on 20-year-old VAX computers, and they're buying parts for the machines on eBay, and you don't have the capability to support something like that anymore. Whether it's you can't find parts for the VAX you have sitting in your lab, or the engineer who knew that is retiring. It really covers the whole gamut, from the customers, the partners, the people outside, as well as everybody inside.
Ravi, what sort of advice do you have because it's not a one-time event that we're talking about here. It's an ongoing effort. It's a continuous process. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for organizations to make this product, kind of this shift in product-led values, become something sustained as the company grows, as priorities shift over time, as they always do? What have you found helpful in kind of embedding that product thinking and making it actually sustainable?
Yes. So I think organizations have their goals, their visions, which are sometimes very clear to everyone across the organization. What may not be happening is those goals and those visions, they don't get broken down into individual subcomponents tailored to individual teams and individual products, right? That's where that tailoring down of breaking down of that goal very clearly across the organization always help. What happens is a lot of organizations, if they don't break it down, those goals individually across the board, everyone makes their own assumption of those goals based on that master goal which an organization has laid out for everyone, that north star, right? Everyone have their own story of north star. Breaking down those outcomes is very important, because unless or until the outcomes are not clear, the product led organizations will not be able to do a good job at that, even if they want to. So a lot of good organizations at their multiple leadership levels actually collaborate and break it down very effectively, whereas sometimes certain subgroups are not aligned to that main goal. They have interpreted the goal in their own way. uh, it as an example, an engineering team can actually interpret as a goal, a dollar value goal, as I will have to ship more features now. So if I'm doubling the revenue over this next number of years, I may have to double the number of features, which probably is not the goal they
It
should
just
align to.
means you have to work weekends. That's not a big
Yes,
deal.
exactly. So I think that's where I think how do you break it down and communicate very effectively?
For
Yeah,
anyone listening, and just for anyone listening, sarcasm. All right.
yeah,
Anyway, Tom, go ahead.
what that works until you're already working the weekends. But
Yeah.
to go back on to what Ravi was saying, I think there's the effort that you have to make sure that you push the goals down, but beyond that, there's making sure that you're opening up the communications channels, that you're not just talking to your direct reports, but you're talking to their staff. You're not just talking to your peers, but you're making yourself available to talk to their staff as well, to hear, to talk about, the goals, and to, hear fed back how, the sole contributors are interpreting that. And, not only, making tweaks if they're not aligned, but, taking the ideas, or the gaps that are coming out of this, and using this to improve how you're communicating across the organization, because this is ultimately a communications problem.
So as we kind of wrap up this topic, I wanted to when in, when you are what message, what story have you used, Ravi, that helped others understand what product led really means? Because the change it's all about people, as Tom was just saying. It's communication, it's people, and you need that kind of clarity. Slogans aren't gonna do the trick. So what is that message, that simple message or story that you found to kind of help align everyone or help others really understand what it really means to be product led?
Yeah, and I'll actually go on a personal journey on this. So basically, I delve into product management without knowing I was delving into that, because I actually joined a couple of engagements as what you can lead. Who the guy who's leading it? There is no designation as you are the product manager, but in that story, what I've done is I've actually things were not going as they were supposed to be going, but I first of all, my theory in everything in last few years especially is empathize. Empathy takes you a long way. When things are not going wrong, right, a lot of people are frustrated, and a lot can be done if you just empathize with their frustration and just come at the same human level. So at that level, when I was actually working on that, we were able to bring everyone together, and we were able to steer the boat back, the steer the rocking boat back to a nice, calm ocean breeze kind of a way, right? So that's because I'm in multiple organization. I've stayed longer. I always go back to that story, and a lot of people have viewed that story. So what that becomes like, again, it goes back to evidence-backed theory, right? When I've shared that these are the steps which we have taken to actually steer that boat, how about we do the same thing here? We are not in a rocking boat. We'll probably on the port right now. We're just starting out. We'll probably do a better job if we follow those principles. So I go back to the evidence-backed storyline. If you have stories from the past, you can always use them to explain how you have done it. What would be the outcome if we don't do this? Because we have all made mistakes also, right? We've learned from them.
Yeah, same question to you, Tom. What is that message or story that's helped others best understand what it means to be product led?
Yeah, I'm going to stretch it a little bit and say that the technique that I've used has been to, you know, do all product based or product led all hands regularly, and bring customers in to talk about how they're using the new features, the new capabilities, and what benefits they're able to go and project out as a result of that. That, rather than telling the story myself, rather than having the salesperson or one of the support people go and do it, bringing the customer in makes it more real. And the Q&A with customers and the developers and others can be absolutely fascinating. And you can learn an incredible amount if you get a customer who's a little bit extroverted, and you get a good Q&A going.
So help me understand,
Which brings them closer into the organization, but it also, with a little bit of facilitation, ties this back into the overall product story that you're selling in all of this. We said we were going to do this to make our customers more successful. Here's Rich to talk about how he has taken advantage of it and what it means for his clients.
So I definitely see the value in. I definitely see the value in bringing customers in and sharing their stories and having everyone learn from it. I guess help me. There's a thread maybe I'm missing, or I think the audience would benefit from in that. What's connect for me, bringing the customers in and shifting the mindset of the organization to one of a product mindset, a product led organization.
Yeah, I'll say that product led is the path toward being outcome driven, toward having impact. And there are many customers who can go and underscore that with real examples, better than most good product leaders can do themselves.
Gotcha. So either of you have anything else you want to add on this topic before we jump to our next segment?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. So with that said, we're going to be doing our trivia segment for the show today. Now, here's the thing. Maybe you know the answer. Maybe I made the trivia too easy this time. Maybe I made it too hard. Who knows? We'll find out in a moment. But when I do ask the trivia, don't say the answers. So if you're in the chat room, don't type the answer. If you're here, don't say it. We can talk around the question, but at the end of the show, we'll definitely go and see who knew the answer to the question. So with that said, let's get to the trivia. What product started when its founder decided to test fit the hard way, taking photos of shoes they didn't own? Once again, what product started when its founder decided to test fit the hard way, taking photos of shoes they didn't own? All right. So that is our trivia question of the show, and that what product started when its founder decided to test fit the hard way. And so we'll see what people come up with at the end of the show. I don't know if either of you have anything you want to say or any comments, but not the answer. I'll allow it.
I don't know the answer actually.
Well, don't say that. You might know the answer. You might.
I think there is quite a few deductive hints. I will definitely try once.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
I'm working on making my trivia questions more accessible. Um, it's a process for me. So that brings us to our second topic of the show, and that's about bridging design and engineering, facilitating a lot of that cross functional collaboration. We talked about it a little bit with respect to the product led organization, but when design and engineering are working well together, product teams move faster, solve problems better, create more value. When they're misaligned, things stall. People are working weekends. I hope
Yeah.
not. Even with the best of roadmaps. So I thought it'd be good to explore what it takes to bridge those functions and foster, true collaboration. As a product people, you're in that unique position to facilitate a lot of this type of collaboration and working together. So let's start with some of the pain points because why not? We like pain. We're product people, and so because even the highest performing teams feel that tension. So, what have you found, Tom, that causes the most common disconnects between design and engineering and in the larger product teams?
Yeah, we're going to start with an actual example, which was a co-founder who was the head of engineering, um, who felt that his design sense, and for that matter, his sense of what the product should be, overrode everyone else. And it was a painful couple of years. No, it was not a problem easily solved. The problem was there on the ground when I arrived, and it took a couple of years to go and get it resolved, to where the engineering team took outside input at all. So I think, but you know. I think that reflects an extreme case, but it's also not that unusual, that design itself is something that um, quite a few technology people think of more as something that they can get 80 or 90% of the way themselves. It's not a particular discipline that requires years of specialization and practice. And so I think that's a challenging area. It works well if you can back up design decisions with evidence, but that's not always possible. Not everything is something, a design change that you can A/B test. Um, you may not have a lot of people in your customer base who can go and to give you real feedback. And at the end of the day, it becomes more of a people skills and management issue rather than being a product or technical skills issue.
Ravi?
I would say silo design and engineering efforts in a whole timeline of any product feature development definitely creates friction. So if they are not
For a moment, I thought you were saying to create the silos.
oh no, if they are
I was
having
this will be interesting.
yes, if a designer is working silo and he's going out there and comes back a few days later and delivers something, like gives it to engineering, I think if they are working independently more, it definitely adds more friction. On top of that, I think the fact that and I've been lucky, I've worked with designers and engineers, so I've not run into this problem a lot. However, I've seen situations where they're not seeing eye to eye just because of their different style of thinking. Design and engineering, and again, you may agree with me or not, actually are two aspects of the brain. It's left thinking, right thinking, right? And this goes back to an engineer is always gonna think logically, always, and a designer is always gonna think
Or you hope.
creatively. Yes, yes. So they, and again, we are talking about two different types of thinking. It kind of attacks the whole thing of, okay, A designer is going to think a same problem one way, and an engineer is going to think on the same problem the other way, and everyone thinks that they are right because they are thinking that way. And I think that's the core friction problem, which I totally agree with you. More communication, more people skills can resolve this, especially at the PM level. Also, a PM can bring a lot of bridging of gap with people skills on these aspects.
Yeah, when you, I'm curious to have you talk a little bit about what you've done to reduce some of that friction.
Yeah. So, I mean, I again, I go back to empathy. A PM has to be very empathetic. There should be no streak of them getting frustrated at any point of time. They should forget about frustration and anger. I think, right? There is no word in the dictionary of a PM, because otherwise they'll be like stressed out almost every day. Then, so I follow the principle of ECIR: empathize, communicate, integrate, and respect. Right? As soon as you start doing that, when you are at the center of the table talking to two people and you are talking in a nice way, sometimes that reflects and that brings that harmony among the group. Second thing which I've done, which I think we all should do, is do not have silos of design and engineering. In fact, at the start of the problem statement, bring them together, have an open, engaging conversation about the solution at a very high level. Don't design completely, don't engineer completely, but give a high level of what design principle are you thinking, how are you thinking this problem, and same with engineers. Are you thinking this is feasible? Then they can go in silos, build something, and come back. And the third thing which always helps me is happy hours. You can take any friction away by just having happy hours. I think a lot gets solved over a couple of beers.
You bring up a good point there when it comes to kind of creating that shared context. Tom, what have you seen kind of help teams align around product intent from the start of a project, or eventually
co-locate them together in a working space. I think.
What about a remote office or a hybrid office? How does that work?
Not as well. Particularly with a new group of people, it's much more difficult to build trust. But I think that's a topic for a different TPG. I think staying focused on the question here, that bringing people together, and I probably my style is probably to start to take it into whiteboard level discussions of the problem to be solved, the desired outcomes, and fill up as many whiteboards as you need. I was infamous for stealing all the whiteboards on wheels and bringing them into my big conference room before one of these working sessions. It's like, if it wasn't chained to a desk, then at 7 o'clock in the morning, I was pulling them all in. We were going to use all of them, so that we didn't have to erase anything until we had gotten far enough along that we knew it was now something everybody understood. But the core in this is working together collaboratively, helping people build up trust with one another. A trick in it sometimes is to go and throw out your own really, really bad solution and make them think that that's they're just there to support you, and they'll gang up on you in order to go and get to something better.
I love that trick. I've tried that a couple of times though.
Yeah,
I love that trick.
I was like, the best way to get you to be friends with one another is to make me your enemy for the afternoon, at least till the cookies show up.
Yeah.
And before we can go out to the happy hour.
Yes. I do think that you have to wear that mini therapist hat sometimes. You have to know when the friction is just starting. Rather than complete friction to take over, you need to know when to go offline, talk individually, understand what was happening, and then bridge the gap. I think that sometimes I have to wear that mini therapist hat sometimes, and knowing when to speak, when to go offline, when to take something out of a conversation and not let it spiral over.
So,
Yeah,
Ravi, go ahead, Tom.
I want to say that I've used the term anthropologist rather than therapist. One, it's less triggering, but
I
also
agree.
but in anthropology, you're not only kind of monitoring and understanding what people are saying and doing, but what they're not saying and not doing, the things that they
Yeah.
take for granted. The engineers have stuff they take for granted in communicating with one another that a
Yeah.
designer or a marketing person or a support person or somebody else isn't going to recognize. And if you can pick up on that and pull that out and make it visible, then you're less likely to need to get everybody to that third round of drinks at the happy hour.
Oh yeah, yeah. I surrender my word. I like your word better, and I think anthropologist is a better word. And the fact that I said it earlier in the conversation also, no one shows up to do a bad job. No one shows up every morning to make enemies, right? In fact, it is good to have some friction because that means they are passionate about their work, right? If people are just not having any discontent, it means they have lost the passion also.
So that's a good signal to be looking for. Um, so how do you help clarify ambiguity? How do you help keep the conversations grounded in shared goals, Ravi?
Um, I think thinking from their perspective, I do come from a tech background, and many times I've seen that the uh, really passionate engineers and engineering teams are actually more vocal, are actually more uh, aware of and questioning everything. So think from their perspective and keep pivoting back to that common goal. Sometimes we get into this spiral of thinking from our own perspective. For example, things like scalability, stack, technical stuff, and I'll go that with design also, right? Think from their perspective. Why are they saying what they are saying, and then reel them into the
So
common
let's
goal.
peel away a few layers of that for me. So for
Okay,
people
okay.
listening, like you're telling someone to think from the perspective of an engineer, from the perspective of a designer.
Yes, yes.
What does that mean?
So, for example, if we are working on a web app which is gonna sell to people, it's a digital experience app which is gonna sell as well, right? A designer is actually built something which is complex, which requires a lot of back-end logic and a data points to be brought up. And I'm going way technical now, so sorry for that, but it requires a lot of complexities. It's increasing the timeline of the engineer, right? Uh, it can be done in a simple way. Sometimes a designer wants to personalize the experience for the customer. However, engineer is like, the job can be done by bringing only two things up, just doing two things up. So why do you need to do all this shebang, right? To actually deliver a simple thing. Now their outcome is common. They want to add a feature of selling something. However, their perspective is different. And in this case, what again goes back to is, we are not shipping a feature where say we can sell. We are shipping a feature where we can align to an outcome of how much we are selling and how we are selling and what user is getting out of it. That personalization. And that's where I think bringing that, reeling it back in, that personalization is actually improving the day of the user. It's improving his experience from the app, and it is the value. So this is where the conversation in this example would be with engineer, that our our eventual outcome is not to just sell. Our eventual outcome is to make users life better, and the personalization is doing that. And same thing with the designer is, sometimes they can also get carried away with a lot of creativity stuff. So reeling it back in, whatever is wills and whistles, do we really need that? uh, and bringing it back to, this is necessary, this we can park for later, and stuff like that. Does that kind of is more closer to what you were looking for?
Yeah, I think that was great. I think that
Yeah.
was great. Tom, when it comes to creating space, um, so that hopefully maybe some of these disagreements could be avoided, never happen in the first place, never turn into roadblocks. What have you found was helpful in kind of creating space for design and engineering and product to do that collaboration early and often? Like, what are some of those rituals, those habits, cadences, structures that you found help your teams stay aligned and collaborative?
Yeah, I know to come back to one of the things I said at the start, going and bringing them physically together, blocking, taking a block of time and making sure that people are focused during that block of time. And, the usual rules about, you know, how you minimize or eliminate interruptions in all of it to make the um, the session high quality. That um, once the trust has been established, once the everyone recognizes that they are on the same team, it is possible to move from having everybody together physically and to do things more through a virtual space. But it that still needs to be monitored. The things that aren't being said in Slack, the whether you're having daily stand-ups or you're having weekly status meetings, the people who are not talking about the struggles that they're having. I worked on A, B, and C, and tomorrow I'm going to work on D because I'm afraid that I'm going to have to work on E, and I have no idea at all how to do it.
Yeah.
And that means either being involved myself or having delegates who are looking for this and trying to make sure that the conversation is healthy, and acknowledging that you don't know something is a feature and not a weakness.
Yeah. One thing I would like to add there, which has helped me and the organization around me a lot, is sometimes it is not that possible to logistically to bring everyone in the same room, right? Because a lot of organization work with multiple offices across states. But what has helped is those one-off complete day out sessions or half a day out sessions, bring people in, do not talk about work, let people know each other at a human to human level, let them interact. A lot of team building activities in organizations happen only in the teams. Engineering is going in one team building, design is going in one, sales is, I think cross team building helps a lot, and we have tried it again and again, and we have seen the difference of interaction in individuals cross functional also, because now they know these each other at a human level. They know they probably like the same team, they like the same food, or they dislike the same team sometimes, right? So that helps a lot, because we have worked in teams across like geographically a little far apart, and we brought them together.
Yeah, and doing it in Hawaii definitely helps as well.
if
If anyone's
if we are in
planning.
Google or Amazon with lots of money, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Tom, you touched on this with respect to building that mutual respect. So what are some of those strategies other than just locking everyone in the room and making yourself the bad guy? What have you found to be kind of the good tools for kind of building mutual respect, shared ownership?
I um, I think key element, which starts first from me, from my product managers, is using terms like our product rather than my product. And subtly or not so subtly, helping the others in the team kind of go and conform to that along the way. The um you know my peer, the head of engineering, says, yeah, I'm really proud of the release that my team did. You either have a quiet conversation afterwards, or you tease him publicly, depending on the relationship that you have. But with small steps, you get everybody to see that there isn't a single person in the team who can cover the whole product end to end. The code, supporting elements, documentation, go to market plans, everything else. That's it takes a village.
Yeah.
To use a phrase there, and you work in as many ways as possible to do that. And if you need to coach the board of directors on how they're going to congratulate the team after the release, perhaps putting some words in their mouth, well, that's okay. You can get away with that as long as the words you're giving them aren't too hard to chew.
Yeah, a double thumbs up to that answer, especially the fact that R and forget my and I, we and R goes a long way. And whenever a recognition happens, include the whole group. There is a lot of people behind the scene, infrastructure, security, engineering, sales, marketing, design, a lot of people. Yeah, I totally agree to that.
What Ravi, what is, I guess, one of the biggest mistakes that you see teams make that weakens this cross-functional collaboration that people should be looking out for?
I think the biggest mistake they make is, first of all, a lot of times what I've seen is the person who's supposed to coordinating and bringing the teams together, they do not do that sometimes, and that leads to a lot of chaos because everyone has their own work cut out, but you need to bring it together. It's like a piece of puzzle, right? And the guy who is actually bringing the puzzle together, if he's not doing a good job, that's actually a big failure point. That's where sometimes it all falls down to a lot of senior leaders also look for who is running the show, because they are looking for that guy who is bringing the pieces of the puzzle together. It does not mean he is responsible for everything. It means he's just plugging the puzzle together and making sure it's done on a timely manner, right? That's the first thing. Second thing is identifying early on where the slack is happening across different teams and correcting that without escalation but early dialogue. I think that's also an art of a product manager, where they can see some signs of things slacking. For example, if a design work is happening and through multiple iterations and conversations, it's just not coming along, right? It's just not getting that message, getting that early sign. So rather than waiting for the thing to fly off the handle, you get that early sign, follow the path of conversation, escalation, and then putting it in your quarterly review or everything. This is a major gap, right?
Yeah, same question to you, Tom. What are some of those mistakes that people should be looking out for?
Yeah, I think the first one to watch for is when something goes wrong, having an effort to try to assign blame to an individual, because to echo Ravi, people come to work wanting to do the best that they can. That mistake happened with some context. That mistake happened in some system. It's very, very unusual when you've got a village delivering a product for one person to be able to have, the ability to take action and have no checks and balances on it. So when those things happen, and they usually happen when the organization is stressed, either in the moment or afterwards, try to pull it back and move it from, Steve was the one who put in the code that didn't work, that caused our biggest customer to have a 15-minute outage, because, it may have been, Steve's code, that went into the code repository, but there were an awful lot of checkpoints along the way in that. I think the other one to watch for here is that there, once you've established forward motion on this culture of, everyone is together, you can't tolerate prima donnas. If you have prima donnas who want to do things their own way, trade them to someone else. Put them on a team where they're going to fit in better, and get somebody who's going to be comfortable in the culture that has been created.
That's a good point. Good point. So we're gonna get to the trivia, back to the trivia section in just a moment. Any final comments on this topic here? No. All right.
I'm just going to note that I think you can use this topic as a template and fill in other functions along the way, be it marketing, be it finance, be it sales, be it technical support, customer evangelists and all. I think this is a very healthy topic. It's worth looking at design and engineering, but overall, it's a rich area to go and look for opportunities on making your organization better.
No, it's a great point. Great point there. So all right, so we're gonna get to the trip. We're gonna get, excuse me, to the trivia question, and we'll get to the answer as well this time. But for anyone who forgot the trivia question, here you go. What product started when its founder decided to test fit the hard way, taking photos of shoes they didn't own? Once again, what product started when its founder decided to test fit the hard way, taking photos of shoes they didn't own? All right, let's go around the room here. Tom, what's the answer?
My guess is Nike.
All right, Ravi, what's your guess or answer? You can just...
I'm gonna go with deductive analysis here. Photos means cameras were here and stuff like that. Are you talking about a camera product or shoe product? I don't know. I'll go with Nike as well at this point. I don't know how old Nike is, but it looks like a new company when the photos were around.
So I'm going to see if anyone in the chat room wants to venture a guess. I'm not seeing any guesses. That's okay. So let me get into this a little bit here. So it's the late 1990s. Founder named Nick Swinburne was frustrated, couldn't find the shoes he wanted in local stores, decided to test whether people could actually buy shoes online. So he decided, hey, I'm going to take some pictures of shoes in some people's stores, maybe at Nike, and shoes he didn't own, at just random stores, Foot Locker, Nike, etc. Post them to a simple website, and to see what would happen. And so when someone placed an order for these shoes that he did not own, he would go back to the store, put it in a box, and ship it to them. So the demand was real. Investors flowed in, and it became a $1 billion business. And that $1 billion business, Zappos. It's one of the original fake it till you validate it products there. So it's kind of got a great origin story, and it's always kind of a great example, especially in some of the classes I teach. So definitely, I like that as a great sort of trivia question there. But yeah, Nike wouldn't have been a bad guess, I guess. But Nike was used. I put fit in there to really drive people towards some sort of
it's a good question,
shoe product
it's a good question. There are hints there, yes.
Yeah, I gotta work on my trivia questions still, I guess. So noted. So with that said, I want to go to our new segment today. that we're going to be doing in our show, which I think is great. We have all these great product people joining us on the roundtable all the time. They all have really tremendous advice to share. And so one of the things I'd like to do before we get into wrapping anything up is to go around the room and hear some of hear some product management advice you'd like to share. You'd like people to take away. It's not necessarily related to any of our topics that we're talking about here. Just one or more pieces of just great, solid product management advice from an expert. Tom, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. So, I think we'll start with, your stakeholders don't care about product management KPIs. So stop talking to them about story points and the other metrics that you use. Product management metrics are mostly focused around improving the efficiency and effectiveness of product, of the development processes, but they don't align at all with your stakeholders' goals. Your stakeholders' goals are usually tied up in the outcomes of the initiative, whether it's customer satisfaction, whether it's addressing churn rate, whether it's addressing profitability. And so, as if you want to, move forward, move higher as a product manager, make sure that you talk with your stakeholders and understand how they're being measured. What are the KPIs or OKRs that they're using? And have a dialogue with them to see if you can figure out how your outcomes drive their outcomes, how it drives their success. Take the time to build a custom dashboard. Now, you may need to stick with the standard dashboard because the chief product officer wants all the product managers to have an identical dashboard. They love, going into the CEO and showing a book of, 32 product management dashboards that are all in the same template. But, leave that aside. With the tools that we have now from Gemini and ChatGPT and Claude and others, building a dashboard has never been easier. Focus on the externally visible activities and milestones that your stakeholder can see. And, because I'm an engineer by training, build a risk matrix with the stakeholder. Identify the top 5 things that are going on in product and, if they went wrong, what the impact would be, and, what's the likelihood of them occurring. For example, if you're waiting on another group to provide data for the new capabilities that you need in order for to do the next release of the product, which your stakeholder needs because they've already announced that the product is going to be available at the end of January. This is a risk. And every time you and your stakeholder sit down, these are the things that you should be spending your time talking about. If they're higher up in the organization than you are, it may take their phone call to the other department to get the data feed reprioritized along the way. And you're only going to get there if you start to build that dashboard and build that dialogue with your stakeholder.
Excellent. Ravi, advice from you.
I would say perspective. A product manager should hold different perspective hats and ready to flip the hats as and when required, right? They should invest time and energy into understanding the whys and the way of operations of different teams. I'll take the design and engineering example again because this was the theme of today. If you are a product manager who comes from engineering side, invest time in understanding the design aspect. read about it. There are great books on design thinking. Use chat gpt, I would say. Chat gpt, you can actually, or any AI tool for that matter, you can actually align it to get a different perspective, or engage in building that mind muscle, right? And vice versa, if you are from design background and you want to understand engineering, there are definitely technical books to understand that. Always look from the other person's perspective and understand their whys, and what are the ways of operation, what are, because everyone, like sales, you took a sales example, Tom, and there are many examples right out there. They have developed that way of thinking from continuous success of that way of thinking, right? So you understand what was their why and how they operate. As soon as you start getting into this perspective and these mindset, you can bridge gaps much sooner. And also you understand their perspective, so you start aligning with them a lot. Sometimes product managers can be rigid. I think rigidity, we should lose rigidity completely. We should completely be fluid in conversations and ready to understand others and align to them.
Excellent. Excellent. We're going to go to these. Both these are great advice from people who don't care about your KPIs to developing perspective or better perspective. The the so I want to go to the final comments. If either of you have any final things you want to say, observations from the conversation we've had today. Anything interesting that you're doing outside in the real world, and also tell people how they can get in touch with, how they can reach you, how they can find you online. Let me start with you, Tom.
All right. So, but before I go into how to reach out, the I've got a little bit of a show and tell here. Jeremy's outline mentioned books, and so I wanted to because I mentioned risk earlier. My favorite book on risk is Waltzing with Bears by Tom DeMarco and Timothy Lister, and it's very understandable for software project managers and development managers and product managers and all. It's got a great framework for understanding risks and the likelihood of them and the impact of them along the way. The book's been out for 20 years. If you know a place that sells used technical books, you can probably find a copy for $5 or less. But it's worth a weekend of reading it if you manage projects or you are responsible for delivering things.
Yeah, and I'll get that. We'll get that into the description.
Yeah,
I'll link to it somewhere.
Yeah, I've got a link to it, and I will pass that along to you
great.
afterwards. And then I moved off into establishing my own consultancy about a year ago. I've been busy enough that I'm behind on getting a website up. So for right now, you can go and you can find me on LinkedIn. I am one of the 17 or 19 Thomas O'Rourke's out there. But if you mention the Enterprise Automation Excellence podcast, then LinkedIn search will eventually bring me to the top of the list. I'll be happy to connect with you. I'll be happy to continue any of these conversations further.
Yeah, and your link should already be in our YouTube show description,
All right,
as well as LinkedIn and Meetup. So depending on which way you got to us, you should be able to get to all of them there. But we will double check and make sure it's hasn't disappeared, which sometimes text does in these descriptions. So Ravi, over to you. Final comments.
So this is great. This was a great experience, Jeremy. Thank you. And Tom, it was great having this conversation with you. I do not have the hard copy of the book I'm going to talk about, but the book I like is Empowered, which talks about the people behind the products, right? We in the hunt of technology and the outcomes, sometimes we lose people, and people are the inherent thing which actually build products. So how to understand people, how to manage and cultivate those relationships with different people in organization always helps. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm actually I can be reachable, and through that, and I try to actually reply to every message I get. So I'll look forward to any conversations around this topic. Again, coming from tech background and trying to learn product, and these kind of forums by Jeremy, the product guy, it always helps, right? uh, I would say let's keep the learning journey on always, whether you were a tech guy, product guy, design guy, sales guy, just keep learning.
Awesome. Awesome. Those are great comments there. And just generally, just thanks to me for everyone who joined us off camera, as well as our awesome roundtable on camera here. And it looks like, by the way, I just want to say someone did get the answer to the trivia question. Assuming my glasses are in focus, it's Deep who got the answer. So congrats. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's good. So now I guess I need to make it harder now. So again, it's participation. It's this roundtable. It's this live stream. It's really what makes TPG Live unique. And again, Ravi Katyal, Tom O'Rourke, thank you very much for being part of this conversation, leading product culture, collaboration, mindset shifts, organizational change. We covered a lot, everything from really using evidence to drive a lot of that organizational change, starting small, building up large, opening those communication channels, bringing in the customers, creating that tips on how to create that environment of mutual respect. And really just the advice you gave at the end, I think is great, and we'll work on getting that shared out there a lot more. So if anyone would like to join a future roundtable, we'd love to have you. You don't have to be a CPO. You don't have to be a product manager. You need to care about products, making products better. Every person, background, experience, anywhere in the world is welcome. So you can reach out to me at jhorn@theproductguy.com. And we can then kind of take the conversation from there. If there's other topics you'd like to see us cover, please just drop a comment on our YouTube below the show, and we'll check that out and try to see what other topics that we can get to work in there. And also just as kind of a call to action for everyone, something that you can really do to help the show out, help us grow, help us attract more people, help more folks. Please like, subscribe, enable notifications. It helps the algorithm. It helps us. It helps me. And also tell 5 friends. You know other people that would benefit from great advice, from great expert perspectives in product management, in product at all levels. So please share it with at least 5 of your friends today. About the TPG Live podcast, the Product Way YouTube channel, where we have a lot of other content there as well. It would be a great help. And with that said, really, thank you all again to both our on-camera roundtable, as well as what I like to call the chat room, the off-camera part of the roundtable, for your wisdom, for your conversation, and I'll see you all next time on TPG Live.
Thanks for tuning in. Today's show is just the beginning. Inside the Product Way on Patreon, members go further with expanded TPG Live recaps that turn ideas into concrete actions, guided frameworks, practical insights for everyone from PM to CPO, and access to tools trusted by top product teams worldwide. New content drops every week, including case studies, practical product strategies, key insights, and deep dive articles. That includes our exclusive Roadmap to Mastery series featuring the Product Plus AI collection with real-world strategies to help you lead and deliver in the age of AI. Each week, members are opening doors to new roles and delivering bigger wins. Join them at patreon.com/theproductway or use the QR code on your screen to become a member right now. Enjoy, and thank you very much for your support.